I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. Today we're ranking my top 10 echoes from The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. I couldn't finish my coverage of this game without putting the focus on the very mechanic that allows it to stand out, could I? But rather than just picking the 10 most used echoes in my playthrough, I'm instead gonna give each of my entries little titles you'll see as we progress. Want to see more Echoes of Wisdom coverage? Check out my boss and dungeon ranking videos, you can find links in the description, and be sure to parry that subscribe button for more. Without further ado, my top 10 Echoes of Wisdom echoes, ranked. Let me know your favourites down below. At number 10, we have the best early game echo, which goes to the best echo obtained before the first dungeon. Now we have a couple of potential candidates here. The trampoline found in Suthorn Village is a great movement tool that goes rather underrated, yet gives you that extra lift when you need it. The Peahat summon is also a contender, what with its devastating damage and range, with barely any weaknesses to the enemies you encounter in Suthorn Ruins. Yet I can't ignore that the best echo is the obvious one. It's the old bed found in Hyrule Castle. Beds are the simple solution to most of Echoes of Wisdom's early game puzzles. They give you height with each placement, and distance in whatever direction you choose. You can use them to reach high ledges, get on top of trees, and grab those early heart pieces. Need to cross a wide gap? Pull out a bed. And with just a cost of 1 energy point, every increase throughout the game gives you more beds to play with. Plus, you can heal with beds, making them very valuable at a time where you only have 3 to 4 hearts to your name. Good old sleepy things, they work every time. At number 9, we have the best early game combat echo, which goes to the best enemy echo in combat you can obtain, I'd say before entering Gerudo Desert or Jabal Waters. And while I could pick something like the Crow, which can attack enemies and scatter rupees, you're not really hurting for money in this game as it is, so I never needed that feature. Spear Moblins give decent ranged ability, but they weren't that exciting to me, and while a level 1 Darknut hits hard, they're very slow and they don't really do it. So, I mentioned it earlier, the Peahat wins this category. It can be found inside a lone cave in Suthorn Forest, and helps to make most of the enemy encounters from that point on a complete joke. It has massive range, great mobility, and even has the ability to do damage to the Imposter Link mini-boss in Suthorn Ruins, where most of the other enemies up to that point don't have as much luck. I love our big plant boy, as long as you don't chuck him near fire. At number 8, we have the best early puzzle echo, which goes to the best echo that helps you solve the most puzzles in the early game. There are a handful of echoes that could land in this spot, but I wanted to focus on enemy echoes because it's always more interesting solving a puzzle with an active participant as opposed to an object. And my choice is the Ignazol. This fiery slime is your primary source for lighting fires throughout the majority of the game. It can burn grass, light torches, has great effectiveness against any insect-type enemies or creatures that can be set on fire, and while they initially cost 2 energy points to summon, if Tri reaches level 5, they then cost 1 energy point to summon, which is great for swarming enemies. They're required for moments like this puzzle in Hyrule Castle with the Braziers, and they can even keep you warm in the late game Hebra Mountain. There's no other enemy that gets as much use outside of combat from the start of the game than the Ignazol, and they deserve that distinction. At number 7, we have the best side-scrolling echo, which goes to the best echo that helps out within the 2D side-scrolling segments. For me, this was insanely easy. The Spark, found in the Eastern Temple, is my choice. Sparks have the ability to travel across walls, which has its usage in the Farron Temple dungeon in multiple rooms, because they're also able to activate electric switches. But why I like the Spark is because of Zelda's bind ability. See, if you find a gap you can't cross, or somewhere you need to get up, just bind beneath a spark, then allow them to carry you away to wherever your destination lies. Pesky underwater currents and bottomless pits become a thing of the past when these electric beauties come in, and best of all, they don't hurt you in return. They help me out more times than I care to admit, and I'm glad to have them in my repertoire. At number 6, we have the most broken utility echo, which goes to the echo that, in my opinion, is able to completely break a majority of the overworld puzzles in the game. Think back to the beds. They're balanced because once you reach your limit, summoning another after that will cause the whole stack of beds to fall. But what happens if you have the same type of echo as a bed, yet it doesn't fall when removed from the ground? That is the Cloud Echo. Found in the still world of Mount Lanayru, you need to use these clouds to reach the Lanayru Temple to complete Conde's questline. They're a late game item that allows you to cross over the lengthiest gaps without issue, and as far as I know, they are the only way to get this stamp in Elden Volcano. The drawback for the clouds is that you can only stand on them for a short period of time before they vanish. But once you know that, you can abuse these clouds to get to crazy places. Just look at me here in Mount Hebra climbing my way up to get a collectible. It takes a lot of time and practice, but for people who love the beds, this is just the next step up. And it costing 2 energy means nothing when you can summon 2 of them back and forth and still go up to infinity. At number 5, we have the most broken combat echo, which goes to the enemy echo that, in my opinion, is able to completely break the combat system. Now, even the strongest echoes in this game have their drawbacks, and I'm not actually complaining with this category. It's nice to find a monster that can make combat simpler for those interested in that. And of course, I'm talking about the Lionel you can find in the Eternal Forest. I was lucky to catch this guy quite late in my playthrough, so he got broken out towards the final dungeon, and that's about it. But this Lionel destroys everything. It's got the highest base damage of any echo you can summon, with the only drawback being that he sometimes takes a while to charge. So just keep resummoning him after each attack to reset the attack timer, and voila! The Lionel feels like the creature you summon when you just can't be bothered to think strategy, and that to me is a telltale sign of being broken. At number 4, we have the best underwater echo, of which there are 2 very obvious candidates. If you're looking purely at combat, the Chomp Fin is the top choice. He comes in clutch during the Vocavore fight, as well as the Jabal Ruins dungeon as a whole, and anytime water shows up, you know you're going to be summoning him to deal with the rabble. But for me, the best underwater echo is the Bombfish. As you don't gain access to Link's bombs until the Eldin Temple dungeon, the Bombfish becomes a staple of Zelda's arsenal early on. It's the only creature that can blow up breakable blocks, making him a requirement for a ton of side-scrolling segments, and even when I got the bombs unlocked, I would still use the Bombfish instead, because he's just more convenient and comfortable for me to use. Bind him, hold him in place, watch him explode, and have a good time. Plus, he can also be used outside of the water, making his utility double in scope. I found him, and my life was changed for the better. At number 3, we have the best late-game combat echo. Obviously, we have quite a few options here. The Ball and Chain Trooper can decimate bosses like Baronade, and that spiked ball does a lot of damage. The level 3 variants of the Dark Nuts and the Sword Moblins certainly carry their own weight in a fight, and I wouldn't have defeated the Volcanic Talus boss without my Lizalfos level 3 and his insane jumping skills. Yet for me, I got the most use out of the Elemental Wizrobes. Coming in 3 different flavors, you can pick and choose which one you need for which zone. They can teleport out of harm's way following their attacks, which means they're unlikely to get killed, and as long as you're aiming them correctly, they are dangerous snipers. Wizrobes got me through the Goma and Scorchill boss fights with extreme ease, and the Ice variant helped me with the Slime Eye mini-boss in Lanayru Temple. Even against bigger enemies, they're great at harassing and helped a ton against Imposter Zelda near the end of the game. There's just no other echo that comes close to their overall utility in the second half of Echoes of Wisdom, and I'm sticking to that. At number 2, we have the Silly Fun Echo, which is just an excuse for me to talk about an echo I found to be silly fun. And it is the humble Keese. Something I really enjoyed in Echoes of Wisdom were the puzzles in the Elden region where you'd use Keese to ride wind currents. There was an entire Goron minigame dedicated to this concept, which was super cool as it challenges the player to use a monster in the same way you would use a cuckoo in past games. It's not a system that's overly elaborated on, with the Keese being used in the Elden Temple and briefly in the volcanic Talus Cave, but it really brought a smile to my face every time I got to do it. So yeah, I kinda just made a fun title for this segment to shoehorn the Keese in, but I've got no regrets. Especially love how if you try to use a fire, ice, or electric Keese during any of these, they get stunned by the wind currents because their elements get blown away. It's a really nice touch. And if you don't want to use Wizrobes, like in our last entry, the Elemental Keese are a nice alternative when it comes to the boss fights mentioned prior. At number 1, we have my favorite Echo, and easily one of the most useful in the game. It is the humble Water Block. You get these in the Stilled Jabal Ruins Rift, and they are a game changer. They have the ability to cross gaps like beds for horizontal movement, but their ability to create upwards vertical movement is what really makes them special. The only Echo that comes remotely close are the clouds, but the water blocks can navigate almost every important puzzle or overworld challenge once Tri has all her energy slots unlocked. It's actually insane. You can just create a tower of water, climb up, and reap the rewards every single time. Heart pieces, treasure chests, high cliffs, there's somewhere you want to explore off the beaten path, the water block is your ticket there. It has its drawbacks, with no real diagonal movement to speak of, but I like that balancing. It means I'm not always using the water blocks, and sometimes I get to think outside the box, which is just code word for using beds. It's such a simple Echo, yet it feels elegant, refined, and more than anything, easy to use. And that makes it my favorite in Echoes of Wisdom. And that's my list. Which Echoes are your favorite? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of my future videos. And stay tuned because I'll be covering more of the Zelda series very soon. My social medias are on screen now, feel free to follow where you feel comfortable. I recommend my Twitter, my Discord, or my Blue Sky. You can also go to my YouTube community tab, I post a lot there as well. A massive shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for another month, you guys are amazing, and I'll see you all next time for another video. Adios!